No one heard the child. That's the part that stays with you. Because the house wasn't isolated. It wasn't hidden. It looked normal. A place where a child should feel safe. But inside, something was wrong. This is the story of Krista and Tyler Schindley. And what was happening behind their doors should have never gone unnoticed. From the outside, nothing stood out. No chaos. No police visits. No obvious warning signs. Just a quiet home. Too quiet. And this is where it begins to feel uncomfortable. Because abuse like this doesn't always look violent. Sometimes it looks like silence. Like a child who stops speaking, stops reacting, stops being a child, and no one asks why. Neighbors later said they didn't hear anything unusual. But that doesn't mean nothing was happening. It just means no one knew where to look. And maybe that's the most disturbing part. Because the signs, they were there. Subtle, easy to dismiss, until it was too late. So ask yourself, if you lived next door, would you have noticed? Or would you have seen the same normal life everyone else did? Because soon, we start to see what was really happening inside that house. And it's worse than you think. At first, it didn't seem obvious. That's how cases like this happen. Slow, quiet, almost invisible. Changes in behavior. That's where it starts. The child wasn't the same. Less energy, less interaction, more withdrawal. And this is where it gets worse. Because those changes don't come from nowhere. They come from something happening over time. Something repeated. Something no child should ever experience. But inside that home, there was control. Strict, cold, unforgiving. The kind of environment where fear replaces comfort. Where a child learns very quickly not to speak, not to react, not to draw attention. And from the outside, it still looked normal. That's what makes it so disturbing. Because people saw the family, but they didn't see the child's reality. Did anyone question it? Maybe, but not enough. Because nothing officially raised alarm. No loud incident. No moment that forced intervention. Just a slow pattern that kept getting worse. Until it couldn't be hidden anymore. And when authorities finally stepped in, they realized something chilling. This wasn't sudden. This had been happening for a long time. So now I have to ask you, how many warning signs does it take before someone steps in? Because later, investigators uncovered details that are hard to process. And once you hear them, you can't unhear them. By the time authorities got involved, the damage was already done. And this is where it gets worse. Because what they uncovered wasn't a single moment. It was a pattern of harm, repeated, normalized, hidden behind closed doors, the kind of pattern that only exists when no one stops it. Investigators began piecing everything together, statements, observations, details that didn't seem important until they were, and the picture that formed, it was disturbing, because this wasn't confusion, it wasn't a misunderstanding, it was something that had been allowed to continue, and the people responsible, they didn't show panic. They didn't show urgency. They showed distance, cold responses, detached explanations, as if what happened wasn't as serious as it really was. Let that sink in. And this is where it becomes hard to ignore. Because when confronted with the reality, there were no clear answers, no real accountability, just explanations that didn't match the severity of what investigators were seeing. And at that point, the case shifted. This wasn't about suspicion anymore. It was about proving what had already become clear. So let me ask you, how does something like this go on for so long, without someone stepping in? Because in a bit, everything comes together. And the truth, it's not just disturbing, it's heartbreaking. By the end of the investigation, there was no more denying it. What happened inside that home was real, and it had gone on far too long. And this is where it hits the hardest. Because this case isn't just about what was done, it's about what wasn't done. No one stopped it sooner. No one intervened in time. And a child was left to endure something no child should ever face, behind a door that looked just like any other. That's what makes this case stay with you. Not just the actions, but the silence around them. The missed signs, the overlooked changes, the moments where something felt off, but nothing happened. And by the time the truth came out, it was already too late to undo the damage. The people who were supposed to protect that child failed completely. And now all that's left is the reality of what happened and the questions that come with it. Because cases like this force you to think differently about families, about normal, about what might be happening behind closed doors. So before you scroll, I want your honest opinion. Do you think people truly don't see the signs, or do they see them? and choose not to act, because sometimes the scariest part isn't the abuse itself, it's how long it can go unnoticed.